and welcome back to Literally Literary. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to check out our previous episodes. Today, we are continuing our discussion on The Witches of El Paso by Luis Jaramillo. That was so flawless. That was great.
Great job. Great job. Excellent. I can definitely say that excellent intro was a result of this brebaje that we have in front of us. Yeah. Of literary podcast discussions.
Very Papagayo-like, right? With Isela, who would have like themed food for the different things that you guys would read.
The second half was so full of different foods and lots of eating.
The one that I thought of immediately right now is the kermes with the gorditas that they make at the fairs.
Yeah.
So good. And of course, La Sirena. We talked about that last time, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, but before I guess just kind of where we left off, right? Chapter 13, and I was telling Richie earlier that this is my second time reading it, and it kind of hit different, honestly, the second time, and I think it was because and we were talking about this pre-show, right, about the reading speed and the listening speed, and I think it really does make a difference because the first time I read it, I kind of was like, we were going to record, it didn't happen, and so there were maybe some passages I didn't digest as well as I could have. So now the second time, I can appreciate it more, and it just goes to show, that like you really got to pace yourself when reading a novel.
Yeah, so my experience is similar in that I had read a good chunk of it earlier as well, like last November, I think. And when we came back for episode 1, it was a little hazy, trying to recall and recollect like specifics. But in preparation for this episode, it's all much more clear now. And like you said, I slowed down my pace. I didn't have to like rush, kind of like I had been. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today. I have notes. I have a notebook filled with stuff.
Like always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, thanks to Raina for commenting on last episode. We miss you.
Well, I always appreciate any comments, whatever you guys want to tag us in. It's been great getting some different bookstores and other like literary accounts give us feedback. So we always appreciate that. And of course, offers, so we always love hearing what authors thought about our episodes and maybe interviewing you guys too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're picking up with Einstein being a brujo, right? Sorry, I don't know if you guys have anything before that though. Sorry.
Where were you?
So it's on 120. Wait. 129, but I don't know if you guys have anything before that.
No, I'm on what after I'm 130, 131.
I just, the reason why, first of all, I just think that's a hilarious thing. Like, Einstein was a brujo, theory and relativity, like the concept of la vista being like a force and energy, I do think is something I really loved and appreciated in the book.
Yeah.
But on top of that, last time we were talking how maybe one of the major overall themes is injustice. And I think tied into that is like just the theme of power, right? I think Plato talks about how like true, like power corrupts even like innocent or like good people. It's with the ring of Gyges, or I don't know how to pronounce it. But it makes me think of how power is manifest. And it really comes to a T here with Marta and her, the way she ends up using La Vista and how it manifests around her, right? And so I think of power a lot. And so that passage in 129, they start to kind of have a conversation on power, right? 129, what did you do with the power, right? And the conversation here, which we alluded to previous episode, was how Madre Inocenta wasn't so innocent, right? Kind of getting addicted to the power of the brebaje.
Right.
And being a little corrupt about like how she managed to like ask for it and get it. And so I think I just want to reiterate those themes, right, of injustice, but like here it's a conversation about power and how we use it and misuse it, which come into play later.
Yeah. And even what you mentioned earlier, right, about the Einstein thing, how, they're framing this within that, scientific universe, right, of like the quantum world. And because, this takes us out of fantasy, and I think that's one thing, too, that we had talked about, like how much of it is like believable, right? How much of this belief do we have to suspend? So it is kind of nice, like it does offer like this kind of naturalistic explanation more so than like supernatural.
Yeah. I took a Gothic literature class at UTEP with Dr. Brian Yothers. And I know this isn't Gothic literature, but, in that class, we kind of looked at when do you guys take it too?
I didn't take it
Later
with
on?
Yothers.
You took a Gothic lit class?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who I took it with.
My point is we looked at like kind of like the first Gothic lit from like the Italian to like onwards moving forward. And our final paper, I ended up like choosing like a newer version of Gothic literature, which is really, I looked at the novel I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. And I called it the scientific Gothic because very much like this, it took this concept of vampires and death, life after death kind of thing. And in that book, Matheson explains it almost scientifically, right? Why, in the book, they explain why vampires are averse to cross or garlic. It's because it's an aversion to things when they were alive that like they're reacting to certain aspects. So I thought that explanation was very scientific. And so that reminded me of the explanation of La Vista here a little bit, where it's kind of a force in that way. And I think they say that in 133 as well. La Vista is a force. It isn't a tool, it's a force.
Yeah. It's not the force, right? But it's a force.
Dun, dun, dun. There's our Star Wars.
We always end up back here, don't we?
We need like a sound effect, every time
the soundboard.
Your quota is met. Anyway,
and right after, I did want to talk about the following pages here, 130, 131. I'm sure you guys found this interesting too, right? And I had talked about the beauty of this book is in its portrayal of the border. And here, 131, I couldn't do nothing but relate to, what they share here about with Marta. Nobody thought anything about driving to Juarez for lunch and back. Marta remembers arriving at the border and, at the old market, Luna would see American citizen, and they wavered through without even glancing at her license. Things changed after 9/11. You get the scene we hear with unsmiling ICE agents, something that, of course, is hitting harder right now. But, yeah, I mean, just the border dynamics of how things were back then and how things changed after 9/11. Something that I think not many people know, right? Even I think people here in the border, like if you didn't cross regularly, it was a thing. And just kind of, I think it also reflects like it does reflect like the increased, militarization of the border.
Hyper surveillance.
Yeah, hyper surveillance and like how, this is of course going in the wrong direction, right? In terms of like using technology, the scanning of computers.
Border simulator.
Border simulator.
Right up, straight up.
So, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I had to highlight it as well.
Same.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really remember too much before 9/11.
Yeah.
But I know I used to live in Juarez like when I was like 1 and 2 years old.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of memories of that. But
tap into La Vista and find your past memories.
It's in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Go look at your baby self and pull out the memories.
Find it.
Yeah. That's a device we have now.
Like even crossing, like as I was growing up, I remember just like that experience of having to roll down the windows and everybody wake up and yeah.
But I don't know if you've crossed since then, but now like they even have X-ray scanners, I mean it's just very invasive
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think many people around our age, or that's so vague. But yeah, no, at some point, like a lot of kids, people, a quote unquote under 21 would just easily cross to go to the bars and drink, and that was the culture.
Yeah.
You know, that pre 9/11 in that regard.
Yeah. So I wonder, how are things going to get even worse? These next 4 years, who knows? And maybe even after that, of course. So yeah, it's always on my mind, like border
And
studies.
especially working with students who
Yeah.
cross every day.
Yeah, I
to
was
come to
literally
classes.
just thinking about that.
Yeah.
There's so many. Yeah. One of my work studies crosses every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to come to school. So
Also, just to touch one last point on that, at one point we had an international trolley that people could like ride back and forth, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a little earlier on before any of us, but
Right.
yeah, that was something that I think was reimagined as an art project
Mm.
in the early 2000s, and
Yeah.
that's how the trolleys came back to El Paso, right?
Right.
Because Schwarzbein City Council was the one who did that art project, and then kind of manifest it downtown. But to speak on that, right? Like crossing was nothing in the fact where we
Yeah.
had a trolley that would take people easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just want to give credit to Luis for like capturing all these nuances, the changes. You really get a sense of like how things have changed in the novel.
on 132, they mentioned the Kentucky bar.
Mm.
So that takes us back to
Yeah.
Ben Signs, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've told you guys, right? And I really don't like to brag, but just as an interesting point of trivia, the mention here of like Marilyn Monroe, going there to celebrate the divorce of Arthur Miller was actually my grandfather who divorced, and I found out he actually represented Arthur Miller, but somehow I hear the rumors like he celebrated with Marilyn, because he was, I guess, he was one of the head lawyers of like Juarez, and yeah, so every time that people mention that, and I just love Marilyn Monroe also because she was such a big reader, and she has this stereotype on film of like the blonde, so that's another thing that people don't know about her.
Yeah, I put in my notes your story. So you've told it many times. Yeah. About that. I was like, whoa, like it's mentioned here, like, at the end of 132, is that line about this is what money and influence buys, the ability to evade justice, right? Talk about of injustice being a theme.
Yeah, with Soto here.
Yeah. Like that kind of power, right? The people with the money and influence.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I guess a further discussion on like conversation between Marta and Nena, right? Nena warning her about how La Vista really is, right? Like it's not a tool to be used, and to kind of be cautious. And I didn't realize this would end up kind of developing to be a bigger theme later on in the towards the end of the book, right?
And still in this same chapter, I also found interesting the on when they go to the market on 136 and 137, and kind of go, this takes us more to like something like reminded me of like Women of Light. The description of like all the herbs and all the relics, right? The religious relics, the Santa Muerte. And also the description of the people, on 137, the Raramuri women from the Sierra Madre Occidental sit on stools, dressed in bright skirts and headdresses, as they sell really witchy things. Dried skate wings and Marta notes with alarms, gun skeletons. And so that just reminded me of the other of the book I was reading on the Raramuri. I was actually reading it at the same time. And so it kind of hit different, because learning about the Raramuri, was kind of eye-opening. There's a perception, but there's a reality. Hopefully we can talk about that book. By the way, I think it'll be worth discussing, given that it's set here in the more or less in the border.
What book is it?
The one about the Raramuri, I'm trying to remember the name, but it's got Raramuri in the title, I think. But it's more like a history, but it's like an ethnography also of the Raramuri and some of the issues that they face.
Okay. Yeah, the market is interesting.
But yeah, I mean, again, the attention to detail, those kinds of things, like more of the authenticity of the border.
I mean, I'm not like intending to stay with this, but the next thing I had highlighted was when they're at the market, and then I was explaining La Vista again a little bit more, and how she's talking about how the world is singing, everything sings, right? And I like this idea of rocks having a slow heartbeat, right? So it's a lot harder to hear their songs, and damn it, I love it. It reminds me a little bit of like string theory when I was like, studying astronomy, and this idea of everything like being almost musically inclined, having a vibration, having a song to it. So this really captured my imagination and my heart,
Yeah, I mean, it totally reminds me of your poetry, the sound that a universe makes with one hand closed, or what is it? I forget that line of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not too long after though, of course, in the market, there's a darkness to it too, right? Because it's not all good, it's not all bad, it's just chaos. And when Nena first drank that brebaje, right, she talks about like how she was all the animals and experiencing that, and she tells that to Marta, right? The real power, the millions of eyes and feathers and fur and teeth of it, to the point where like knowing that power, she tells Marta, I would sell you to the devil to see Rosa again. Not hiding your intentions.
Yeah. And it kind of does a good job there of like raising the stakes, right? Like, where is her loyalty going to be?
Of course, plot-wise, this is when she does have a vision that lets him to know to go to Waco Tanks, right? And again, he covers really well, like some of the history behind Waco Tanks.
Yeah.
The pictographs that are there.
And Tlaloc, right? The rain god.
Yeah.
With Arturo Islas, classical read.
Perfect. Another great connection.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, well, 14 is the smallpox outbreak, right? Justice. Again, they talk about justice, right? We learn of like what happens at the convent, smallpox outbreak, Iturbe, Eslimbo kicks it. Right, and later on, they describe it as like God's justice for like his actions.
Yeah.
But I mean, other people died too, which is terrible. But
something that the U.S. might have to worry about these next 4 years, things like smallpox and polio coming back.
Yeah. But of course, damn, that's all these things, that are kind of striking a chord to today in like the terrifying and sad ways.
Yeah.
I mean, plot wise, I think this is what brings Nena close to Emiliano, right? Because Benedicta has her feed him some of the brebaje, right? And then she gets kicked out because she's kind of why are you putting Madre Inocenta in this
Yeah,
even though it's her own choices. But yeah, I mean that just drives things forward.
Yeah.
What's her name? The other Eugenia, right? She gets sick really bad, and we see what happens with her later on too. But then they go to Waco Tanks. Like the chapter. I don't know. Did you guys have? Because I had some cool, a few things here.
I had the first paragraph on 152. I just like the imagery on this one. It's really it's so good. It's so cute. Just lots of colors and just the description of like the desert lands on their way to Hueco Tanks. The sky is very blue, the earth yellow, the hills studded with dark patches of creosote.
Creosote.
Of creosote. You can cut that out, please.
Creosote.
Creosote bushes and mesquite. Along the highway, tumbleweeds grow, but there's a different quality to the familiar plants, to the blue of the sky and the circle of the sun, its edges liquid, sky melting into land.
God, such a great description.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny you mentioned that one because, right before that one, we get the ugly one, which is like the circle, which again, like another sign of the times. I don't know. Do you remember a circle?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
How old are you again?
Yeah.
I lived pretty close to it. Or like I
Yeah.
could see it
Ugh.
from my house.
Yeah.
Like over the freeway or whatever.
Constantly burning, like in the sky, and so kind of that transition, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another thing that is kind of El Paso specific, because I think you need that frame of reference to appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, I highlighted your passage too. But I do like the contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back.
And then, of course, we've talked to Cassie and, checked out her book. And she talks about Smelter Town, right, where she was lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another thread that kind of appears not as often, but like in random spots is this storytelling. Thinking about storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here they talk about like the two different sides of the story of Hueco Tanks, and then even later on when talking about La Vista, they talk about how like it's like jumping from story to story. Like they use that phrasing. So I do think that is kind of interesting.
The Midrash, reminds me of that with
Ooh,
Dr.
nice one.
Capel.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really interesting too.
Which it made me realize I don't really know a whole lot about the history there, so I wouldn't know what to.
Yeah, I've never even been.
forward.
Like, have you guys been up there? Yeah.
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 Did some. I've been not to visit because I know a lot of people go like climbing there. I went for actually night photography.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's
to
cool, man.
visit because I was big into astronomy and going out to. You had to drive all the way out there to get away from light pollution.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta do it again. I think I went with a group of friends to watch like a meteor shower.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah, we should go sometime.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, listeners? Want to come with us?
Everybody come.
Yeah. What I, the only thing I wanted to add was like with the framing of this book as a Western is, Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, which you hear in Blood Meridian where they vandalize this, right? The judge, the antagonist of that one. And so here kind of learning more of that history, makes it even hit worse because like, that book was all about erasure because of white supremacy. And now here, you understand the value of this place.
Ooh, yeah. I think of the judge erasing the pictographs that they just uncover, and yeah, he's doing that. What do you call it?
Epistemicide?
Epistemic violence.
Yeah.
Epistemicide. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I would talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
The monsoon rains. Hey, we don't have saguaros here, right?
No, yeah. Yeah, I thought that was like Arizona region specific.
Yeah.
That was one thing I highlighted on 156. Like he's describing.
At least that's what I always assumed.
The desert plants.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, saguaro.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if maybe historically there have been. I don't know, but I associate with the Sonora Desert
Yeah.
instead of Chihuahua. But that's like whenever I think of that kind of criticism, I think of comic book guy from
That's
The
what I was
Simpsons.
thinking exactly.
Well, actually, in episode 28, you said, I'm like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's still very beautiful,
Yeah.
like discussion of the desert landscape.
We don't mean to be pedantic or anything.
Exactly. But one of my favorite lines, and again, I told you guys before we recorded, like there are some lines that just like I love and hit me.
Yeah.
On 159, maybe you guys highlighted it too. They'd say Marta is not a noun but a verb. This is when I think she's learning the Encanto. Did I jump too far ahead?
No,
159. 159?
159.
Yeah. Let me see. Where is it? I wrote it down here. Wait, highlight it. Oh yeah, it's 159. Sing what? Don't you know you can hear the hum? Yes, but it's not a song. Not until you sing it, and it's at the end of that paragraph. At the very, very end. Marta has never before experienced. Hold on. Yeah, she's learning the Encanto with Nena.
Mm-hmm.
You see it? And like Nena's like excited. That's my girl.
Oh, 160.
Okay.
It's on 160. Okay, my thing says here 159. So I guess there's a little bit of
Well, the
glitch.
conversation starts on 159, but yeah.
Yeah, I love that sentence. Marta is not a noun, but a verb, bubbling with a creative force. And I just love it because it's just kind of explaining like she just is. Martha is. She is living. She's experiencing. She is becoming one of La Vista. She is. So that's why she's a verb. You know, it just kind of reminds me of one of the coolest things someone ever said about me once. Like, man, he just is. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I had to highlight that line because
Yeah.
I just there's an energy behind it. That's
Yeah, philosophically, there's a lot to think about with this La Vista and existentially too.
yeah. Oof. Existential. I know. I mean, tying into the next chapter, there's a lot of discussion like on gods and different gods and stuff. Maybe there's a connection to that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No,
Take
but
it
go
away.
ahead.
Take it away, Richie.
No, I mean, I kind of did notes and everything, and I don't have to talk about it. Like,
I know we want to talk about everything.
it's hard, yeah. Okay, well, so 200, like, who's was?
188 to 189.
I think that's you.
Yeah, that's
Go for it.
yeah, that's me.
Well, I mean, like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. So I guess this kind of connects to I want to say Woman of Light.
Yeah.
Not being like in the past, especially like even here on the border, you like a lot of people weren't allowed to speak in Spanish.
Right.
That's kind of happening here at Olga and Luna's high school. And Olga decides to start a Spanish-speaking club at the school. And oddly enough, Luna is the one who creates the Speak English Only club. So these sisters are like creating opposing clubs and sitting next to each other with their respective clubs.
Right.
I'd like to think that there's like only like one other person in like the Speak English club. Like,
Right.
this is clearly just a protester sisters club. Like,
Like
Yeah.
something out of Community or something.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. But on page 189, both sisters tell their father what happened, or their papa. And he explains to Luna that their family has been speaking Spanish in the border region since the 1500s, which is even before the U.S. was even a country. And he even says that their ancestors are disappointed in her for having created this club because it's who they are. And Spanish is part of their heritage and their culture. And yeah, I just thought it was really interesting. Like this, I think the club was more of like a sisterly feud kind of thing. It wasn't even like actually like Speak English Only club. I think it was more of like a
Yeah, it wasn't a political message. It was just like,
yeah.
oh, you're gonna start your own club about this, and I'm gonna.
Yeah. That's what I would like to think.
I think so too. I mean, I would like to think that as well.
But yeah, it's just interesting that there was a time where people were told not to speak their language. And even on this page, on the same page, Luna tells Olga, please use the language of the United States. But the United States doesn't even have an official language.
Right.
So
Contrary to what popular.
Yeah,
populace might
contrary.
make you
Yeah,
think.
they might say that, but there isn't one. So
Yeah.
I just thought this was like a really important chapter in this sense.
Yeah, and again, kind of this running theme of like how things were back then, and understanding the importance of understanding that history to understand that like things don't have to be this way, right? We don't have to have X-ray scanners at the border, right? You know, we didn't have to take our shoes off at the airport. All these things, right? That just show how things have gotten worse in many ways. But also, you know, back then, kind of the discrimination that people face for speaking in Spanish and like in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, the threat of injustice, even in the past timeline in which we're with younger Nena, I think she recounts. I mean, we see her treated terribly too, right? Like, just for being a woman, right? Like, oh, you're so dumb. You think that you can see the vines grow? Like, that's not what she means by I want to see how they grow. Like, how do they like form after growing? You know. But I think there's a passage, and I don't have it readily available, right, where they talk about how even the landscape, even though it's changed over time, there's still like injustice and a lot of like that going on.
Yeah. I think in the next one, you know, we get I had 206 here. This is with Marta, and you know, she's talking to Sofia. And this is in a case, you know, where she's like, she puts a curse on her, right? And so
Silver tongue.
have you guys seen Drag Me to Hell?
No.
No.
I only remember the end scene.
So it kind of has this exact thing where what's it called? A Romani woman puts a curse on a banker for like not giving him the loan. And so the banker has to like, you know, talk to them about, well, lift the curse, you know, and so yeah, it reminded me a lot about that. And yeah, just kind of you know, thinking about how, you know, things beyond the legal realm going into the, you know, even like black magic, right? Dark magic and the, what did they call it? The evil eye and
Yeah, mal de ojo. I mean, that whole thing with Sophia is interesting because after this, she's being intimidated by both sides, right? Because we addressed it in the first part of this is how all the women who were suing were getting intimidated, right, at the workplace, or like men would show up with guns and like in family gatherings. Here in this instance, right, Martha ends up intimidating Sophia, right? And speaking of this mal de ojo and the silver tongue, that really scares Sophia. So much so that, again, it comes back with this warning about how Marta's starting to like take advantage of La Vista and her for her own ways.
yeah.
Right. So that's the last line, right, of that chapter. Send me the recordings and I'll lift the curse.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. And it's funny because they were just talking about like one side recordings, right? Was it Texas? What's it called?
The one party consent.
One party consent.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
No, but yeah, I recommended Drag Me to Hell. It's classic Sam Raimi of Evil Dead fame.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I remember the beginning and the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh, is it this part that I put a big star next to?
Yeah, I highlighted it as well.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, just here, you know, I really gravitated towards the El Paso references, you know, and here, you know, just how is it that El Paso is, quote, magical, even without La Vista. You know, just Chicos, right? We get the Chicos reference obligatory, it seems. Lubies, you know, and yeah, I mean, just everything that makes El Paso so special. And yet, you know, you get the dark history there, right? In the El Paso they grew up when there were signs in store windows that read no dogs or Mexicans.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny, we have the copy here, Bodanza in a Mexican American Story by David Romo. And I'm sure he talks about it that here in that book.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, that's an infamous photo, right? Of that you see. I've seen shared all along social media.
Yeah.
With that sign.
Mm-hmm.
But wait a minute, hold on. Chico's Tacos, spicy red. I don't think it's spicy at all. I got that's.
Well, maybe for tomato sauce. Oh,
Is it? I guess so. That's fair for tomato sauce, sure. But I
like,
still wouldn't
I
put that
have
in
a
the realm of
confession.
spicy.
I've never had them.
Wow.
You gotta have them at least once, so,
No.
you can have your own decision on it.
Yeah. Well, they did change the recipe though. So
They
like,
did. They made it
yeah.
fancy.
Oh, they're fancy now.
yeah,
Elevated.
yeah. Somehow, and somehow not.
Hey, but maybe that should be the next place we go to.
Wow.
Since Vanessa's
Since
never
I've never
shared
had
that.
them.
Keep asking. Hey, where's the spot you want to go? Well,
I know. Maybe this is the one. I'm
sorry.
a little bit scared, but okay.
I deviated so much. I just like I
No, I know.
circled that spicy.
It's because.
But I get it. I get it.
It's
I
because
get
we're
it.
talking about our home, so like then we we get distracted.
Yeah, no, I'm jokingly dressing it because my El Paso peeps know. But yeah, no, it.
Yeah, I had 228.
Oh, okay.
At the top of it. Yeah, I'll just read it. Since then, things have changed in El Paso, and the old prejudices, though still there, are only part of the mix of cultures. Everyone speaks a little Spanish, and there are lots of completely bilingual people. Nobody is just one thing, and this mix is why Marta lives here. I really liked that. Just like that nobody is one thing, and we all live here.
Mestizaje.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I highlighted that as well. Very cool.
Yeah.
The end of this chapter is a trip, though, right? Because we were talking about that
Yeah.
earlier today.
Right.
At first, I mean, because I was reading, I was like trying to finish, and I
The,
was like,
the pre-show.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
The one without me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, if you go to Papagayo,
Or if you work at the Grandes.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
I know, turned around quickly, huh?
I know. What the heck?
Oh man, but it is interesting that incident, right, in which
Yeah.
Marta's son Pablo experiences this encounter of a lady, and I think they set it up at first to make it seem like it's the sister, like Ogla, right? Or, but then they realize it's Benedicta, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you didn't understand the meaning of sister, meaning sister could also mean nun.
Right. Yeah. And it's also brings it more into the Gothic, right? Because you have like evil nuns and like there's that movie The Nun. I haven't seen it, but
I haven't, but I see the images all the time. I'm like, okay, that's that'd be scary. So.
yeah.
By the way, speaking of which, there are some really terrifying. Like Luis Jaramillo does some really good horror. Like a little later on chapters.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah.
Like when he's talking about well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But I agree. Oh, I had a question for you guys.
Oh.
So there's an instance in where Marta starts using La Vista Mar, like her powers. And in I think at least two instances I can think off the top of my head, in the courtroom, and then later with her husband, there's like it describes like a cloud over their head, and then like they make a decision, and I don't know if that was like a literal manifestation or if it was just to represent like her influencing their choice, because neither of the characters really react like, oh, what is this cloud out of nowhere? It's just more like they change their mind, or they end up going with the decision Marta wants.
Yeah.
So,
Whether it was a figurative cloud or a literal.
yeah, so because or if like like there's no really description of like people reacting to it, like in shock or horror.
Right.
So it made me think it might have been more like figurative, like but that was just a craft question, I guess.
Reminds me of that Jordan Peele movie about the aliens and the clouds, you know? If you guys have seen it,
UFO. No, I'm just kidding. What was it called again? Oh, damn. No.
don't look up.
Don't
or,
look. No.
No,
It's
that
one
was-
word.
Yeah, it's one word.
Up.
No, it's
Yeah.
I cried at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, no, wrong one.
no. I know which one. I didn't watch it.
Is it called Damn?
No,
No.
it's
It's a Kendrick. Wow.
Are you googling it?
Uh-huh.
As soon as you say it, I'm gonna be mad.
No, me too. I can't believe I can't remember it.
It's the one with Kiki Palmer, isn't it?
Cloudy or
With a chance of meatballs?
right.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yes.
No, shut up.
You almost said it.
What?
No.
Almost there.
Nope.
oh,
it's
yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you see something and you're like, you gotta nope out. Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
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 So maybe it was more that, you know?
One of those. Yeah. Maybe. That was such a derailment too.
I know.
It's all good. We're very talkative today, which is good. Which means hopefully you guys are enjoying the episode.
No, but yeah, again, you know, the beautiful way that Luis features the border, La Frontera, and like the surrounding area, right? The Waco, and then on 23, Carlsbad,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
In the previous, in the earlier time zone with young Nena, they go visit the vineyards, and she's like, "These are the lands of my father's stories." I'm like, I like that.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of skipped over Nena being pregnant.
Yeah.
But that's kind of really big in this next chapter, chapter 24. She has like this fear of her baby being taken from her and her being, I guess, like sent away again.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole dynamics behind that of,
Yeah.
you know, her getting impregnated by Emiliano, who was initially supposed to get married to Eugenia, right? But who decides to stay to be a nun in the convent, and the father, Emiliano and Benedicta's father,
Don Javier.
Don Javier,
Yeah.
and all of his plumpness and vileness as well, right?
Yeah.
Decides to marry her, and ultimately that forces her. She has nowhere to go. She has no one. It's kind of constantly implied, right? So she turns back to the convent, and sorry, I was hearing the loudness.
Yeah, no, that was
Having
perfect.
to rely on that again.
Yeah.
Which also, of course, Benedicta, like, there's tension there between
Yeah.
the two of them.
Yeah. She wants she wants to trust her that she'll help her get home, back to her sisters to be able to raise her baby.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the other thing, right? Benedicta's in charge now because Mother Innocenta's like just gone. She's like
Yeah.
not lost in the sauce, but she's lost in La Vista.
Right. Which again shows the dangers, right, of it. Yeah.
But then, so she has this baby.
Yes.
Can I call you Rose? or Rosa?
The description here, right, of that moment also were interesting in terms of time ripping and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in this moment when she has her opportunity to get back to her timeline. And this is where also the separation happens with her daughter.
Yeah, you could kind of feel it, like the tension when she's going back, but her baby's not going with her, or Rosa's not going with her.
I guess even to even rewind a little bit prior to this chapter, when we get to kind of Marta's perspective, when both her and older Nena are singing the Encanto together, it takes them to this diner, La Serena, right, that she sees. And we don't really find that out till afterwards, right? When Nena, what? Okay,
you
this is an
tap on
audio
your
this is an audio podcast. People cannot see me in my mannerisms.
I'm sure they heard you.
But I'm just saying, I think then she finally gets back, Nina, right? That is,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that brings us to chapter 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
then it explains what this place is.
Right.
And it's not La Serena, but it's made to look like it.
Yeah. That's where like this book really got trippy.
It's my favorite chapter.
Yes. I think like the transition from chapter 24 to 25 is just intense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. And I think if you're not really like reading it, it could be really easy to get lost with what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
And spoiler alert too. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys' thoughts on chapter 25? If you had any lines from there. I had a lot of lines from there.
yeah.
I have one at 251.
251. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me go. Let me actually go. I'm using. I think I mentioned the first episode, but I'm using the Kindle version right now, so that's why we had that discrepancy earlier about the page number. But
Right.
and it was like, I guess, the slightest difference because it was at the very bottom of this page here. But I think for the most part they're matching up.
Yeah, for the most part they have been.
Oh, 250. Hold on, I gotta scroll through. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, but I don't know. Showing my age. All right. So one of the questions I wrote down as I was reading it is, this is by all means in the structure that we've had so far in the book. Pretty much it alternates perspective and time, right?
Yes.
Marta's perspective in a more modern time zone, and then of course younger Nena when she's back in time. It pretty much goes back and forth.
Yeah.
This chapter is set up as Marta's perspective, but of course it's also where we see the big reunion, and I thought that was an interesting choice, right? So I'm like, oh, we're seeing the reunion between Nena and Rosa from Marta's perspective, and I thought that was unusual. I wrote that down, like, why? Because we see them embrace, but of course, as the chapter goes on, we realize that this is a unique space, and Marta is able to experience Rosa memories, and she says, like, I'm Rosa now, or I'm Nena now, and they experience each other's it's just a unique place, right? And they it's to talk about, like, I mean, even right now, I feel like that Charlie meme from It's Always Sunny with the graph, right? You know, where he's explaining, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, and then so Benedicta and Rosa show up as old women, but Benedicta's like, hey, these are the bodies we died in, like but then she's 12 right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're changing ages, and it
Very
was so fun.
Interstellar too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course, this is also confirmed where we find out why Marta and Rosa can't exist in the same space. Which I was gonna make the dark joke earlier, but they're long relatives. So how does that work? It's kind of like a loop. It's a knot.
Right.
So
And like you said, right? I mean, they even use that word. Yeah. Yeah. So as kind of the big twist, right? I thought that was definitely a mind. What do they call it? A mind.
you could say it.
Like
He doesn't want to.
I was thinking about like the more scholarly term, but yeah, like a mind fuck, right? And,
Yeah.
Totally like Dark, that show.
Yeah. But not as dark, but still a
Right.
little bit like, oh, wait a minute, how does this work then? Yeah, and that explanation is page 252. I hope it aligns with yours, right? Where I don't know what Elena told you, but that had nothing to do with me. They're talking about the separation,
Yeah,
right?
253.
It's 253. Okay. They can't exist in the same time. Rosa is your grandmother's mother's mother's mother. All the way back. Look closer. Right? And again, I think as a literary device, La Vista as a space here allows, I think, Luis Jaramillo to tell these stories quickly, right? Jumping from experience to experience. This is a chapter where they also use that line about jumping story to story. I can't remember right now.
I think so.
I'm scrolling forward, but yeah, I just love this chapter. It's just, I think we could like do a whole episode on it.
Yeah.
On it in its own right. And of course, I think I got a little emotional where they talk about Benedicta and her taking care of the children, and Nena felt like well, what about me? And Benedicta says, I didn't know you were mine until it was too late. Like, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna step back. I want to hear more of your guys' thoughts on this.
I'm like, where do I?
What do you think of all this? Like,
For me, the thing that stood out was like the memories. So like even though we're seeing Rosa when she's 12, when she's 12, she has all the memories of the things that have happened before and after her. And so I just was thinking about that and what that must feel like. I just can't even imagine what like that. I just feel like that would be so overwhelming.
yeah.
To just know all of the things that have ever happened to you and ever will happen to you.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Tremalfadorians from Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5, right? The experience time is all at once.
Or like Dr. Manhattan, right, from Watchmen.
Ooh, oh, that's a cold take on that one, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, also Arrival, the aliens in Arrival are like that too.
That's the movie. I'm like, wait, when do
Yeah.
aliens get here in the book?
No, it's like aliens.
I missed that chapter. Okay, the movie Arrival.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the description here on 258, which for you might be 257, she is in a bubble, floating in nothingness, moving in the sine wave of story,
That's
a rotary motion that comes around to itself.
That's the line I was referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bubble to a bubble. She lived in a bubble, dog. She came down in a bubble, dog. Sorry.
I love Wicked.
Oh, that's where it's from.
Well, it's like a
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
It's you haven't seen that meme?
I haven't, no.
Oh my God, it's one of the best videos
Yeah.
on the internet. It's just a very intense debate on whether Glinda was she was a witch. No.
yeah.
Is that it? She was a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll show you after the show.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to make a note, actually.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of I quote it all the time.
Yeah.
Because he's so passionate about it. That's why.
He's
like the hand gestures and everything. All right. I am writing this down in my notebook so I do not forget. All right. Anyway, but that's the line. What you quoted was what I was referencing to about the stories. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It does kind of wrap up pretty quickly. You were talking about the pacing, right? Before we recorded, Vanessa.
Yeah. The second half just felt like there was so many things happening all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in comparison to the first half, where there's a lot more world building and you're getting to know the characters. You're trying to figure out what time period you're in, maybe. And this one was still going like between the two time periods, but the events are just happening a lot quicker
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
to come into these last two chapters.
And I like how it also becomes much more generational, right? About how is it that things are going to be passed down. This tradition of La Vista and the history of the land.
Yeah. Like the last line especially. Am I allowed to read that?
Oh, of the book?
Yeah. Are we not there yet?
Before that, though, I did highlight one of my strong lines was on 264.
Oh, that's crazy. I just turned to that page.
Wow. The one it starts with the paragraph, "No, I'm telling you, it hasn't."
Yes.
Because they're having
264.
a discussion about like after this whole thing, Marta's she's lost it. And I'm using quote unquote lost it, right? And I love this line highlighted. But everything ends and everything begins over and over forever. and then pointing to like just cyclical nature of existence. I think, which
Yeah.
is one of the points as well in the novel.
And the snake here, right? The Ouroboros.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everything begins and ends at the Kentucky Club, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Because I think as we alluded to, or I alluded to earlier, one of the big concerns that ends up we don't realize till later on is Benedicta warns Marta about like the power, like Marta showing signs of like using it again, like, and that's gonna have a blowback, and
Right.
Marta does kind of experience that, right? Because Sophia was recording that thing that she told her about lifting the curse, and
Right.
Marta realizes that, oh, this stuff is blowing back on me, so it doesn't being, it's not the end though, because we learned that she could take over so I think she's learning that she doesn't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, a big reveal at the end.
The last line?
Is it the last line?
Oh, whatever.
Is it?
I don't know. No, it's not.
Because we learned something else, right?
Yeah.
At that Marta is pregnant.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
we do. Yes, we do.
And that's why I was thinking the line, you were talking about that last line of the book about beginning and ending, beginning and ending. Here's Martha. It's a new beginning.
A new beginning. I just like the last 5 words. That's all I want to. That's all I'm gonna read from that one. The one who comes next. I like that whole cycle, and I like how that's where it ends.
Yeah.
With a new beginning.
It caught me off guard because I turned the page like, oh wait, that's it.
Yeah.
So after reflecting and seeing it, I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
me too.
agree.
Like we said, if you guys are listening right now on February of Valentine's Day of 2025, hopefully you can join us at the writing workshop that Luis is going to give at the Rio Grande campus of BPCC. And I think before that he was going to have a kind of a reading. He was going to have a reading at Barnes. So yeah, just for you guys, an opportunity to meet the author and talk about books like we'd like to do. But I just wanted to say, hasta la vista, baby.
Dang it, you still.
That's crazy.
I was thinking about it the whole time. All right.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Literally Literary, recorded at Power at the Pass and brought to you by Border Census. This episode, we continued our discussion on The Witches of El Paso by Luis Jaramillo. If you haven't read it, we hope we inspire you to pick up a copy. Join us on our next episode and follow us on Instagram at literallyliterary.ep.